Hey friends, SGT here, and couldn't be more happy to have on the line the one and only Andy Hoffman from Miles Franklin to talk us through what is now evidently QE4 as the Fed has announced today. Endless monetization of the debt is the only game they've got left. Hey Andy, welcome back.
Hey, and it's not just that they just announced it. They just announced it as in 5 minutes ago, so I'm raring to go.
Yeah, I mean, this is incredible stuff. What's your reaction to what you're hearing this morning come off the news wires and out of the Fed's mouth?
Okay, first off, so people understand exactly what happened, Operation Twist, which means theoretically selling short-term Treasury bonds, that's the Fed, and buying long-term Treasury bonds was supposed to end in June, at the end of June. At the end of June, they extended that until year-end, and then in September, as everyone knows, they announced QE3 when they said we're going to buy $40 billion of mortgage-backed bonds every month indefinitely. Now what they just announced was, now that Operation Twist has ended or will be ending in 2 weeks, they are going to indefinitely be buying $45 billion of Treasury bonds a month, only this time it will not be sterilized by short-term sales. This is pure monetization. This is pure QE4. And it's only 3 months after QE3. And it's incredible, truly, because in the past we used to get these QE events and lowering interest rates when we were in times of crisis. Now it's just kind of, this is what you do all the time. You have to keep printing, inflate or die.
This is the smoking gun. This is what we've been waiting for to prove that what you and John Williams and James Turk have been saying is really baked in the cake at this point. We are going to see hyperinflation, are we not?
Yeah, it was baked in the cake. I mean, we fell off the fiscal cliff, so-called, years ago. But this truly, the last remaining vestige that they had of somehow claiming they weren't printing money in the Treasury arena was this fake sterilization that they were talking about. Again, when you have ZIRP by definition means they are buying short-term Treasury bonds to keep rates down. When they talk about Twist, that meant selling short-term Treasury bonds to buy long-term ones. Well, if you're doing ZIRP, then you're also buying short-term Treasury bonds. But when you have the mainstream media spinning it for you, they'll say, well, it's really sterilized. They're not really net buying Treasury bonds. Well, in this case, not only are they buying short-term bonds with keeping ZIRP indefinitely, at least until late 2015, according to their own words. But now they're monetizing the long-term Treasury debt and the mortgage-backed securities indefinitely. So this is truly, truly what you call the beginnings of hyperinflation. There is no way back. And keep in mind, this is occurring while the mainstream media and Wall Street and, of course, the White House is telling you the economy is recovering.
Well, and I want to talk to you about this economic recovery as we see now 47 plus million people on food stamps. Things continue to deteriorate. But before we talk about that, you've had your eye on silver and gold this morning, and we saw a smash happen right around 10:30 in the morning. I'm seeing reports come in that some 58 million ounces of silver, that's 11,760 contracts traded between 10:32 and 10:33 a.m. What do you make of the manipulation prior to this announcement and what you're seeing now in the action with gold and silver?
Well, it's funny you should ask, Sean. Here's what I wrote in my morning commentary at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. It won't be published for another couple hours because it's still being edited. I wrote exactly this. At the New York Stock Exchange Open, gold is up $6, silver's up 30 cents, and the Dow's up 30. I'd be shocked not to see the usual pre-FOMC precious metal smackdown, but irrespective, who cares? Precious metals 2013 fate, likely to reach all-time highs in all global currencies, will likely be set in stone after Benny speaks at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Okay, so I said I'd be shocked if we didn't see a smash at 9:30, and sure enough, we saw it at 10 o'clock, and gold fell something like $10 in maybe a minute or so, okay? And then on top of that, just minutes before they announced QE4, the same thing, a big smash. Gold fell about $10 just before that. And I looked back at my charts from September 13 when they announced QE3, and what do you know? The exact same thing happened. Minutes before it was announced, gold was smashed. So again, the reason that I'm sorry, but I am become like one of the few people that really follows this and has become an expert on it. The reason that I'm so confident in what I do and that I speak to so many people of it is because I know what they're doing. They are so obvious that anyone could tell. And I can tell you that just in the last couple of days, Miles Franklin has seen an uptick in business. And wait till you see what we do in the next few weeks when people pour into physical gold and silver, knowing what is coming up in 2013.
Well, when you say that it's so transparent what they're doing, I agree. It gets to the point where, and I was thinking about this before I got you on the line today. I was like, why do we even talk about this stuff anymore? Because you get a little exasperated, right? Because things only get worse and nothing changes for the better. And I think a great example of that is this dinosaur Warren Buffett recently saying that Jamie Dimon would be, quote, the best Treasury Secretary if there's a market crisis. I mean, don't you feel like sometimes we're stuck in the twilight zone?
Well, look, my motto has been, 7 or 8 years in this arena has been every day worse than the last when you're talking about manipulation. But the point is gold and silver go up every year. If you own physical gold and silver, you're beating every asset every year. And as for Buffett, I mean, who gives a crap about him? I'm sick of hearing about him. In fact, this is the guy who's talking about, he wants to pay more taxes, yet I see a story today how Berkshire Hathaway is buying back all this stock to avoid taxes. So, look, I can't talk anymore about Warren Buffett, but I can say there's very good reason for me to be and you to be saying what we say. It's because we do make a difference. I see my subscription base growing dramatically, not dramatically in terms of the size of the world, but look, if we can get through to 1% of the people, then we've saved 1% of the people, and we've done something good in our life. And the fact is, my goal is to get from 1% to 2%, because, 50 or 70% are never going to get it, and the rest are going to get it when it's too late. So, look, my goal is to help the people who are open-minded, and we are doing that.
Yeah, no, my point there too on the Buffett situation is that it's just like, when the criminals run the show, it's no surprise anymore that they would suggest that other arch criminals are the ones that can fix the problem. It's a little bit like the mayor of Chicago suggesting Al Capone would be, a great governor of the state. It's just absurd. But to back you up what you're saying on gold and silver, you published a piece yesterday called That Fickle Thing Called Sentiment, in which you go back and recap for everybody that over the last 11 years, gold is up 17% annually and silver's up 21%. And just this year alone, Andy, gold's up 9% and silver's up 19%.
Yeah, and now it's over 20% because silver is soaring right now after this announcement. But look, I mean, when it comes down to it, it's going to be a very ugly world. These people, these bad people in charge, are only going to get worse. Someone sent me an email saying, "Oh, look, the whole SEC, not just Mary Shapiro, they're all leaving." And I said, "Good riddance." But what are you going to get next? I mean, it's only going to get uglier in every phase of life, political, economic, and social. But there are plenty of things you can do to protect yourself. I mean, financially, of course, you have physical gold and silver, you've won. And I can't emphasize enough, you've already beaten Warren Buffett and Jamie Dimon at their game. If you try to go in their paper world, you will get smashed. Go long, go short, stocks, bonds, you name it, you're going to lose. That's the financial side. Then there's the other side of the world. I mean, you can't control everything, but you certainly could prepare as best you can for the worst-case scenario and hope for the best.
Let's move on, Andy, and I want to talk to you a little bit about this latest figure coming out that food stamps usage in this country has hit a new record high. Over 47 million people in this country are on food stamps. How is it that the mainstream media can still be talking about this recovery and that the recovery is fragile? Clearly, for anybody who isn't employed, you're screwed. You're living through the Depression right now.
Well, the mainstream media is part of the machine. I mean, they are owned by the people that are, running the country. And I'm not talking about, Bilderbergs and running the world. I'm just talking about the people who are in charge of the country right now. I mean, that's part of their game. It's Wall Street, Washington, and the mainstream media. As for food stamps, I mean, I think they're up something like 50%, the users, since Obama came in office. And I'm not blaming him specifically. He's just, one part of the problem and the current part of the problem. But the fact is the U.S. lost all its jobs to the Far East years ago, and now because of its debt, it can't even keep consuming its way to prosperity or pretending it's prosperity. People are broke right now, and I just saw the other day the mayor of Newark. I think his name is Booker. He just spent a week living on food stamps just to see what it was like, and he was like practically starving. So people who live on food stamps, I mean, they're taking taxpayer money, but they're also barely surviving. I mean, you barely have, I don't think you can even have a daily caloric intake. So, and we had 600,000 new users just last month, and I think 1 million over the past 2 months. So, at some point it's going to overwhelm the system. And keep in mind, all this money printing is going to make the value of those food stamps even worse. Food prices are going to keep soaring as they have been for the past decade. I am terrified what's going to go on. And by the way, if people don't truly understand what I mean by the social unrest from not having enough money, take a look what's going on in Lansing, Michigan, where yesterday they announced this right-to-work bill, which I believe means it's kind of breaking up unions in a way.
Right.
And the union workers are striking, and there was riots, and Jimmy Hoffa Jr. said we're going to have a civil war in Michigan, and they will, because people are going to be starving. They will not be able to feed their families.
It's a broken system, and the violence that you're citing over there in Michigan is an absolute perfect example of what we're going to see when this thing finally melts down. But you're absolutely right, Andy. The turmoil we're seeing over there in Michigan as the unions are freaking out that their union power is ultimately going to be broken, and Jimmy Hoffa warns of a civil war. I think that's just a taste of what's to come. And people should also keep in mind that only 7% of the 8th graders in Detroit are literate. I mean, that's how bad this country is falling apart.
And I saw an article today I was reading. I think it's called something like 15 Reasons the Economy is Collapsing in 2013 Will Be Bad. If you Google it, something like that, you'll find it. And in it was talking specifically about Michigan, about how Detroit was once one of the great cities of the world because of all the cars, and now it's just destitute and it's collapsing. And I mean, you think about that. The only thing that's left in Michigan is those unions. So what happens now when those union benefits get broken up? So the little money that's still left in Michigan gets taken away. I think that is a scary, scary place. You talk about, the problems start in the fringes where there's the most issues. That's the most issues. California, the most issues. Illinois, some of these states that just can't support themselves are going to be the first ones to go. And I think Michigan is going to be a very scary case study of what the U.S. is going to look like.
Yeah, and California too, though. And let's get back to this fiscal cliff. Peter Schiff and others have called this thing, I think you have too, it's a ruse. It's a creation of Bernanke, this fiscal cliff. I mean, it's real and yet it's not real, because if they're just going to continue to print money, they're going to paper over the problems anyway. And I think what I'm driving at here is that this fiscal cliff political war is that Obama wants to raise so many taxes, and the GOP would parade around under the pretense that they don't want to raise taxes. And we can see what happens when taxes are raised. Look at California. They're raising taxes, and yet revenues are plummeting as businesses flee the state. There just are no easy fixes anymore, are there?
Well, as for taxes, it's common knowledge. I think the number is 19%. That's the amount of tax revenues they get from earned income, no matter what the tax rate. So it really doesn't matter if they're going to change the taxes. And as I've also read, the alternative minimum tax reduces the impact of any of these stupid tax changes. So it's all just talking. In fact, before the election, the ruse that came out of this Washington, Wall Street, mainstream media troika of evil was that we were in an economic recovery. They would just keep repeating it. They put out this ridiculous data like that, those job reports that came out in like September and October. And once they got into office, now they've changed it to the fiscal cliff, because they're trying to create a scenario where people will believe, well, if government just comes to a deal, then things are okay. I would say that 99% of Americans have not the slightest clue what the fiscal cliff is, or what the kind of deal they're talking about. The funny thing is, the issue is, well, we have this huge deficit, and when they talk about a deal, the deal is to make the deficit bigger. People want them to make a deal so that they increase the entitlements and reduce the taxes. So yes, look, of course they'll come to a deal. Even if they did, even if the full fiscal cliff hit, it still wouldn't make a dent. But they're going to make it even worse by caving. And again, it doesn't matter anyway. The Fed is just going to keep printing and printing and printing. They made that loud and clear today. And if we're sitting here a year from now and gold and silver are not at all-time highs in every currency around the world, I will be amazed.
Well, thanks for watching part 1. Don't miss part 2. Click here.